Hey everyone, and welcome back to Bookkast, where we bring you the bestsellers in minutes.
I'm Sarah.
And I'm Paul, and today we're diving deep into Born a Crime.
Oh, Born a Crime
by
Trevor Noah. This book has been like a massive bestseller.
Oh yeah, it's been huge.
For years now.
Years and years. What makes this book so captivating?
I think it's just an incredible story.
Yeah.
You know, it gives you a firsthand look at growing up in South Africa during and after apartheid.
Absolutely.
And Noah's experiences are just so eye-opening.
Yeah.
Often really funny, sometimes heartbreaking, and always thought-provoking.
It really makes you think.
Yeah.
So we're going to unpack some of the most fascinating and insightful moments from Born a Crime, focusing on his childhood and youth.
Let's get to it.
Let's do it. So Born a Crime, even the title is kind of striking.
It hits you hard.
It does.
Like you were explaining how Trevor's very existence was actually against the law.
Yeah, so apartheid in South Africa had these laws called the Immorality Act.
The Immorality Act.
And these laws outlawed interracial relationships.
So his parents.
Exactly. So his parents
broke the law.
Yeah, and if you were caught, you could face up to 4 years in prison.
4 years?
Just for
being in love?
Yeah, for having a relationship with someone of a different race. And so Trevor's parents, you know, a white Swiss father, a Black Xhosa mother.
A crime.
Yeah, he was literally born a crime according to their laws. And it wasn't just about preventing relationships. This act created like this constant fear, this secrecy.
Oh, yeah.
That really impacted families like Trevor's.
Right, because it's not like they could be open about it.
Oh.
It was like a secret society.
You know, they had to keep it quiet. It must have been so stressful.
Definitely.
And for Trevor, like, it made his existence a source of anxiety.
Just for being alive.
And this was all part of a bigger strategy by the apartheid government to maintain control.
To control people through fear and division.
Yeah, so apartheid wasn't just about racial segregation. It was also about creating distrust and animosity between different Black ethnic groups.
So it's like they were turning people against each other.
Exactly. And they did this through propaganda, through controlling resources, really trying to make sure that there wasn't a united front against the white minority.
So apart-hate, as the book calls it.
Apart-hate.
Yeah.
Such a good term for it.
It really sums it up.
And these divisions, unfortunately, had consequences that lasted even after apartheid ended.
Oh, yeah. The book talks about some really intense conflicts.
Yeah, like the end of apartheid and the release of Mandela were huge steps forward. Yeah. But after decades of this engineered division, there were these deep scars that remained, like the power struggles between groups like the Zulu and the Xhosa, which were amplified after the old regime fell.
And it led to so much violence.
Oh, it was horrific.
Yeah.
You know, there's this practice of necklacing where people were burned alive with tires around their necks.
Oh, it's just awful.
Trevor actually writes about seeing a charred body on his way to school. It's a really disturbing image.
It really shows the brutality of that time.
Yeah, and in the midst of all this societal turmoil, you have Trevor trying to figure out his own identity, starting with his very birth.
Right. He was born into a world where his parents' relationship was a dangerous secret.
Yeah, and to protect his father, his name wasn't even on Trevor's birth certificate.
Wow.
So he's growing up, and his experience is so fragmented.
Living in different places.
Different places. He lived illegally in white areas like Hillbrow with his mother, then in Soweto with his grandmother, and later in Eden Park, which was designated as a colored area.
And in each of these places, he was an outsider.
Totally. In white areas, his skin color made him stand out in Soweto. His lighter complexion made him different, and even Eden Park, where he might have physically blended in more, his upbringing and his mother's influence set him apart.
It's like he never really fit in anywhere.
Exactly. He was constantly navigating these different worlds and trying to find his place. And speaking of his mother, she sounds like an incredible woman.
Oh, she's definitely a force of nature.
The book really highlights her deep religious faith.
Oh, she was deeply religious.
Like, she would go to multiple church services every Sunday.
Multiple.
A white church, a black church, sometimes a mixed congregation.
And the book draws a really interesting contrast between these services.
Yeah, like the white church was brief, efficient, almost like a business transaction.
In and out.
Whereas the black church, often held outdoors, would go on for hours with singing and prayer and this real sense of community.
It's more emotional.
And she had this explanation that Black people needed more time with Jesus because they had endured more suffering.
That makes sense in a way.
It does. And her faith wasn't just something for Sundays. It was this active, unwavering belief that she could overcome any obstacle.
Like the story about their constantly breaking down VW Beetle.
Yeah, that car was always falling apart.
Oh, it was a lemon.
But she never saw it as a defeat.
No.
It was just the devil trying to stop them from going to church.
An obstacle to overcome.
And even when the car broke down, she would insist on taking the minibuses.
Which were not always reliable.
No, those minibuses were kind of a wild ride. There's actually a pretty harrowing story about them being thrown off a minibus.
Oh, yeah, tell me about that.
So they're on this minibus, and the driver gets angry because he sees Trevor's mother had been in a car with another man earlier, and because she was speaking Xhosa.
So tribalism and sexism?
All mixed into one, and the situation escalates to the point where they're forcibly removed from the minibus.
Wow.
And the driver's just yelling abuse at them.
That's scary.
It was a really dangerous situation.
But through it all, Trevor's mother never gave up.
No, she was determined to get to church, and that determination is something she instilled in Trevor.
She famously raised him like a white kid.
Yes. What did that mean exactly?
Well, it meant raising him with the belief that the world was full of possibilities for him, that his opinions mattered, and that he could achieve anything he set his mind to.
Like encouraging him to speak his mind, think critically.
Exactly.
Which was so different from how many black children were raised at the time.
Right. They were often told to keep their heads down and not cause trouble.
And there are these great stories in the book that show her resilience and her ability to find humor in difficult situations.
Like the mulberry juice incident.
Oh, yeah.
Tell me that one.
So young Trevor gets into a fight with some kids and comes home covered in mulberry juice.
Head to toe.
And instead of getting upset, his mother bursts out laughing and says, "Now you really are half black and half white."
She had a great sense of humor.
Oh, she did. And it's that ability to find the funny side of things that really helped them through tough times.
And her approach to discipline was also interesting.
Yeah, she had clear boundaries and always explained the reason for the punishment.
So it wasn't arbitrary.
No, it was always about teaching him a lesson, and then right after the punishment, she'd be back to being warm and loving.
Back to normal.
Like nothing had happened. It created this sense of security for Trevor, even within the context of discipline.
And she always stood up for him, even against authority figures like at his Catholic school.
Oh yeah, she was his biggest advocate.
Like when he was punished for wanting to participate in the Eucharist.
Or when he was laughing while being physically disciplined.
Which is a natural reaction for some people.
It was a nervous laugh, but the school didn't understand that.
And his mother wasn't having it.
No, she went straight to the principal and basically told them that they didn't know how to hit a child properly if he was laughing during the punishment.
She was fierce.
Oh, yeah. She was not afraid to speak her mind. And then there's the demon incident.
Oh, yes, the indoor urination during the storm.
It's such a funny story, but it also shows the blend of cultural beliefs that his mother held.
Explain that a little bit.
So there's a huge storm, and young Trevor, instead of going to the outhouse, pees in the house.
Inside.
And his grandmother finds out, and his mother immediately thinks it's witchcraft, a demon in the house.
A demon.
So they have this whole ritual burning the evidence on the driveway with prayers and hymns.
It's a really interesting mix of traditional African beliefs and her Christian faith.
Yeah, it shows how these different belief systems were intertwined in their lives. And another big theme in Born a Crime is the power of language.
Language was crucial for Trevor.
Absolutely. He realized early on that being able to speak someone's language could break down barriers.
Like skin color.
Exactly. He became fluent in Zulu, Xhosa, Swana, all these different languages.
A true polyglot.
It allowed him to connect with people from different backgrounds to diffuse tense situations.
He was like a chameleon adapting to his surroundings.
And beyond just communication, it gave him this unique perspective on the world.
Seeing things through different cultural lenses.
Which probably helped him later on as a comedian.
For sure.
And South Africa itself is incredibly diverse linguistically.
11 official languages.
11. It's like the Tower of Babel.
It must have been challenging.
It was. But people found ways to communicate, often blending languages, relying on context. And for Trevor, his ability to speak these languages fluently gave him a real advantage.
It helped him navigate this complex social landscape.
Especially in school, where he struggled to fit in with any one group.
He wasn't fully accepted by the white students, the black students, or the colored students.
So he kind of carved out his own niche.
He became the tuck shop guy.
Right. He ran a little convenience store within the school selling snacks and drinks.
That's smart.
It was driven by his need to belong and also to make some money.
And it allowed him to interact with all these different groups.
Yeah, he became this connector bringing people together through the power of snacks.
That's amazing.
And his high school was a real melting pot.
It was a model C school, right?
Yeah, these were formerly white-only schools that started integrating after apartheid ended.
So a mix of background.
A real mix. You had wealthy white kids, working-class white kids, newly affluent black kids, students from the townships, colored students, Indian students.
Wow.
But even though it was integrated on paper, social groups still formed along lines of class and geography, which often overlapped with race.
So those divisions were still there?
Unfortunately, they were. And as a mixed-race individual, Trevor still felt like an outsider.
Not quite belonging to any one group.
And that feeling extended to his early experiences with love and rejection.
Like his crush on Zahira.
Oh, Zahira.
He planned for years to ask her to the Matrix dance.
Yeah, he had it all figured out.
And then what happened?
Well, on Valentine's Day, she dumps him for the popular white boy Lorenzo.
Oh, no.
It was a harsh lesson in teenage romance and the social hierarchies of high school.
Heartbreak.
It happens to the best of us.
And from heartbreak to hustling?
Yeah, Trevor had a real knack for business from a young age.
Starting with his seedy piracy business.
Right. He saw that people wanted affordable music.
And he provided.
Exactly. He was a true entrepreneur.
And then he teamed up with Bongani and Tom.
Bongani and Tom. Now, that was an adventure.
Involved in all sorts of things.
DJing, payday lending, even running a pawn shop.
All out of Alexandria.
The hood, as he calls it.
And that experience really opened his eyes to a different side of life.
Oh, yeah. He saw the blurred lines between civilian and criminal life, the strong sense of community, even among gangsters.
It's like a different world.
It was. And there was this concept of insurance that they had when dealing with white people. And basically, if they did something wrong to a white person, they had to make sure that the community was taken care of.
It was like a twisted form of social responsibility.
Yeah, and then there's the Go Hitler incident.
Oh, yeah, that's a story.
Yeah, they're DJing at a Jewish school event.
A Jewish school?
And they have this dancer named Hitler.
No way.
I know, right?
Yeah.
And the crowd is going wild, chanting, "Go Hitler."
Oh, my God.
And Trevor and his friends are like, what's going on?
They were clueless.
They had no idea about the historical significance of that name.
It's a perfect example of the cultural disconnect.
In the township context, Hitler didn't have the same weight as it did for the Jewish community.
It was just a name.
Sometimes even seen as a symbol of strength.
Wow.
It's a really shocking but also kind of funny moment that highlights the different worlds that existed in South Africa.
And speaking of different worlds, Trevor's family life also went through some major changes.
Like when they moved to Highlands North?
Highlands North, that was a whole different environment.
Yeah, it was an affluent, predominantly white suburb, a far cry from Eden Park in Soweto.
So he was an outsider again?
Pretty much it was a community of isolation with people living behind high walls, and he had trouble connecting with anyone.
And his relationship with his father was also complicated?
Yeah, because of the laws of apartheid, they had to meet in secret when Trevor was young.
Secret meetings.
Very different from the big family Christmas celebrations he had with his mother's side.
Right.
And although his mother always spoke positively about his father when his father moved to Cape Town, they gradually lost touch.
It's sad.
It is. And then there's Abel, his stepfather.
Abe.
He comes into the picture, and at first he seems like a positive influence, almost like an older brother to Trevor.
But then things took a dark turn.
A very dark turn. Abel has this temper, and he starts physically abusing Trevor's mother.
It's heartbreaking.
Trevor describes feeling completely helpless watching this abuse happen.
And his mother's explanation for Abel's behavior is so insightful.
What did she say?
She said, "He doesn't hate us, he hates himself."
It shows her incredible empathy, even in the face of violence.
It's like she was trying to understand the root cause of his pain.
And on top of all this, they were struggling financially.
Especially after the garage business failed.
Yeah, they were really struggling. They were eating things like sawdust meat and mopane worms, which are like a last resort food.
It sounds awful.
It was. And eventually Trevor decides he can't take it anymore.
He leaves home.
Yeah, it was a breaking point for him. He needed to get out of that environment to protect himself. And then we come to the most shocking part of the book, the shooting of his mother.
It's a really difficult part to read.
Trevor gets this phone call from his brother Andrew, who just says very calmly, "Mom's been shot."
Just like that.
And immediately Trevor knows it was Abel.
He didn't even have to say it.
The level of fear and violence they live with was just unimaginable, and the details of the shooting are horrific.
Abel confronts them after church, threatens them. His mother tries to run away, and he shoots her in the back of the head.
It's so brutal.
It is.
And Andrew is amazing. In that moment, he takes control, drives his injured mother to the hospital while she's bleeding in the back seat.
A true hero.
And then Trevor calls Abel, who confirms what he's done and even threatens Trevor.
It's chilling.
It is.
And yet somehow his mother survives.
Miraculously, she survives a gunshot wound to the head.
It's a miracle.
When Trevor asks her about health insurance, she says, "Oh, but I do have insurance, Jesus."
Her faith was unshakable.
It really was. She believed that God had saved her, and it's that unwavering spirit that makes her such a powerful figure in the book.
It really is a remarkable story.
It is born a crime.
Yeah.
Takes you on this incredible journey from the complexities of apartheid to the resilience of the human spirit.
And it's told with this unique blend of humor and seriousness,
which makes it both entertaining and thought-provoking.
Yeah.
So for our listener, we hope this deep dive into Born a Crime has given you a glimpse into this powerful book.
It's definitely a book worth reading.
At Bookkast, we aim to give you bestsellers in minutes, but we always encourage you to check out the full book if you're intrigued.
There's so much more to discover.
Trevor Noah's story shows us how societal structures, even those built on injustice, can shape individual lives in profound ways.
And it's a testament to the human ability to adapt, to persevere, and even find humor in the darkest of times.
Well said, Sarah.
Thank you.
And thank you all for tuning in to Bookkast.
Join us next time for another deep dive into a best-selling book.
Until then, happy reading.
Happy reading.
See you next time.